Ngozi stood before the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The white lace gown hugged her slender frame like it had been designed for her alone. Her hair, styled into a soft bun with ivory pins, gleamed under the dim bedroom light. Her mother fussed behind her, dabbing powder on her shoulders and adjusting the veil with trembling fingers. "You look like a queen," Mama whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Ngozi blinked back tears. She felt like a queen. Just 3 weeks ago, she was standing before a blackboard, teaching primary school pupils in a dusty classroom. Life had been simple, small, even, but full of routine and quiet dignity. She had resigned herself to a life of service, modesty, and hoped that maybe one day, love would find her. That day had come, but not in the way she ever imagined. It started at the village's Christmas carol service. The air had been filled with music, the scent of fried puff-puff and roasted corn mingling with the chilly December breeze. She had worn her best wrapper and blouse, more out of respect than the expectation of anything grand. Then he walked in. Obinna Ngozi. Tall. Dark. Bearded. Fresh from London, with a confident stride and a glint in his eye that made women whisper and heads turn. He didn't just walk into the carol service, he walked into her life. Their eyes locked from across the churchyard. She'd tried to look away, but something about his gaze rooted her in place. By the end of the night, he had asked for her number. By the end of the week, he had met her mother. And by the second week, he had proposed. Everyone said it was too fast. The market women gossiped. Her colleagues at school whispered. Even Mama asked once, quietly, if she was sure. But Ngozi didn't care. She had never known a love so intense, so consuming. Obinna treated her like royalty. Lavished her with gifts, attention, and promises. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. Now, standing in the same house she had grown up in a wedding dress that looked too expensive for her humble surroundings, she couldn't believe how quickly her life had transformed. "I'm going to be Mrs. Obinna Ngozi," she whispered to herself, a shy smile spreading across her face. The wedding was beautiful. Simple but elegant. Obinna spared no expense. There were white tents, golden ribbons, sparkling drinks, and the hum of live highlife music. She danced until her feet ached, her cheeks sore from smiling. Every time she looked at him, he was watching her, proudly, possessively. That night, as they slipped away to the honeymoon suite in Enugu, he made her feel like the most cherished woman alive. Under the warm blankets, tangled in his arms, she had whispered a soft prayer. "Thank you, God. I made it. I'm no longer the poor teacher. I'm someone's wife. I'm loved." She didn't sleep much that night. Between the excitement, the passion, and the dreams of a bright future, sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. But the next morning, reality knocked early, and hard. A sharp ringtone cut through the dawn silence. Obinna groaned, rolled over, and reached for his phone. His tone shifted immediately as he answered. Tension crept into his muscles as he sat up, now wide awake. "Yes, no, I already told you I'm in Nigeria." "What? Are you joking?" "Jesus." Ngozi sat up, blinking. "Is everything okay?" Obinna ran a hand over his beard, already pulling on a pair of trousers. "Babe, I'm so sorry. My company in London, something went wrong. A client pulled out. It's bad. I need to fly back immediately. Like, today." Her heart sank. "But, Obinna, we just got married." He cupped her face. "Just give me a week, Ngo baby. I'll be back before you even miss me. I promise. This is just to sort things out quickly, and then I'll return and take you back with me. London life, remember? She nodded slowly, watching him pack in silence. Something in her chest tightened. But she pushed it aside. This was Obinna. Her husband. The man who changed her life in less than a month. He kissed her forehead, one last long look in his eyes. I love you, Mrs. Ngozi. Then he was gone. Ngozi stood at the window, watching the black SUV drive away, kicking up dust as it turned out of the compound. She wrapped her arms around herself, a strange chill settling over her. She whispered again, but this time the words didn't feel as solid. I made it, right? The first day after Obinna left, Ngozi stayed hopeful. She cleaned the house obsessively, rearranged her wedding gifts, and replayed the wedding video on her phone until her battery died. Every beep from her phone made her heart skip. But it was never him. Just airtime promos or her colleagues from school wishing her well. Maybe he's just settling in, she told herself. Jet lag. Or too busy. But by the third day, doubt began to creep in. She called. No answer. She texted. No reply. On the fifth day, she called Chief Ngozi. Papa, please, have you heard from Obinna? There was a pause. Then, a half-hearted chuckle. You know how those Oyabo companies behave, he said. They can call meeting at 2 a.m. My son is very busy. He'll call. Just wait. She tried to laugh along. But something in his tone felt off, dismissive, almost irritated. She hung up and stared at her phone for hours, willing it to ring. Days turned to weeks. Her hope slowly began to rot into anxiety. The villagers noticed. The greetings became colder. The women who once envied her now looked at her with a strange mix of pity and curiosity. So, where's your husband now? You know, go follow and go London. Abi, he just marry you to fulfill village tradition. She stopped going out. Stopped picking calls. Her mother's worry grew by the day, but Ngozi remained silent. She still believed. She had to believe. Then one morning, about 7 weeks after the wedding, Ngozi threw up violently in the kitchen. She thought it was food poisoning until she realized she was late, very late. A pregnancy test confirmed her fears. She sat on the bathroom floor for over an hour, the two red lines staring back at her like a cruel joke. Obinna, where are you? She whispered, holding her belly. You're going to be a father. She called again. No answer. She texted, Obinna, I'm pregnant. Please call me. Nothing. When she could no longer bear it alone, she decided to go back to the Ngozi mansion and tell the family face to face. She dressed simply, clutched her handbag tightly, and walked up the grand steps of the family compound like a guest, no longer a bride. The security man looked confused but let her in. Chief Ngozi sat on the veranda, sipping palm wine and reading a newspaper. He glanced up, his expression unreadable. Good afternoon, Papa. He replied without looking up. She cleared her throat. I came to tell you something important. I'm pregnant. It's Obinna's child. There was silence. Then, he folded the newspaper slowly, rested it on his lap, and looked at her, really looked at her. You're sure it's his? You only spent one night. Ngozi froze. Her ears rang. What do you mean? You heard me, he said, standing. You only spent one night. And now you claim you're pregnant. You girls of nowadays, she staggered back, as if slapped. Tears filled her eyes as she stammered, but I'm his wife. We got married properly. he raised a hand. Ngozi, go home. We'll talk when Obinna returns. But she knew. She knew then that something was deeply wrong. They didn't believe her. They didn't care. They had discarded her like a returned item with no receipt. Within a week, she was moved out of the main house and relocated to the boys' quarters at the back of the compound. A small, damp room with one window and a creaky door. No one visited. No one checked in. When she gave birth months later, it was in a government clinic with peeling paint and flickering bulbs. She held her baby alone, whispering between tears. Chimobi. My God lives. She had no welcome party. No naming ceremony. No joy. Only pain. But even in that pain, she found one steady light. Ikenna. Obinna's younger brother. The first time Ikenna knocked on her door, Ngozi thought it was a mistake. No one had visited her since the day she moved into the boys' quarters. Not even the housemaid who used to greet her with, "Good morning, madam," had come around. But Ikenna stood there, holding a small plastic bag. I heard you delivered, he said, offering a hesitant smile. Congratulations. Ngozi stared at him for a few seconds, unsure of what to say. She stepped aside and let him in. He placed the bag on the tiny table. It was baby lotion, powder, and a small packet of newborn diapers. Thank you, she murmured, trying not to cry. He visited again the next week. Then again the week after that. Sometimes he brought baby clothes. Sometimes food. Once, he brought a rocking chair. You need to rest too, he said, adjusting it awkwardly in the cramped space. He never asked personal questions. Never brought up Obinna. He didn't offer empty promises or false hope. He just showed up, with a kind word, a thoughtful gift, a quiet presence. When Chimobi fell sick at 5 months, it was Ikenna who drove them to the hospital in the middle of the night. He sat with Ngozi, his hand brushing hers every now and then as she rocked her feverish son in her arms. Thank you, she whispered through tired tears. Don't thank me, he replied. I'm just doing what anyone with a heart should do. The villagers noticed, of course. Is it not strange that it's the younger brother now caring for her? Maybe she planned this all along. You know these village girls. If she marries him, won't that be abomination? Ngozi heard them. But at this point, she was too tired to explain herself to the world. She was simply trying to survive. She returned to her teaching job when Chimobi turned 1. The pay was barely enough to cover rent and baby food, but she needed something, anything, to keep her dignity. Each time Ikenna visited, he offered to help. Sometimes it was money. Other times it was helping bathe the baby or rock him to sleep. Still, he never crossed the line. He never said he loved her. Never tried to touch her inappropriately. But sometimes, when she was cooking or feeding Chimobi, she would feel his eyes on her, soft, gentle, and full of something unspoken. It scared her. One day, as they sat under the mango tree beside her room, Chimobi asleep in her arms, Ngozi spoke. Why do you keep coming? Ikenna looked up from the toy truck he had brought. Because you need someone. And Chimobi needs a father figure. She was quiet for a while. And you? She asked softly. He hesitated. I don't know what this is, Ngozi. But I know that when I come here, I feel peace. I feel like I'm supposed to be here. Her throat tightened. She didn't say anything. But in that moment, a tiny part of her heart began to crack open, just enough to let light in. By the time Chimobi was 2, he had started calling Ikenna Uncle Daddy. Ngozi laughed the first time she heard it, but something about it warmed her. It wasn't just a title, it was a truth. Ikena was the only father figure her son had ever known. And though she had never said it out loud, Ngozi began to depend on Ikena more than she admitted to herself. She found herself waiting for his knock every weekend. Found herself keeping food warm in case he came late. Found herself smiling again. But she was still afraid. Afraid of the shame. Of the family. Of the villagers. Of Obinna, wherever he was. She didn't even know if she was still married. But in the quiet moments, when the world slept and Chimobi's breathing was soft in the background, she let herself wonder, what if? Chimobi's third birthday was a modest affair. Ngozi had borrowed money from a fellow teacher to buy biscuits, balloons, and a small cake with blue icing. The celebration was simple, yet full of laughter, mostly thanks to Ikena, who showed up early with party hats, a Bluetooth speaker, and a second cake that had "Chimobi the Champ" written on it. The children from the neighborhood came. There was rice, a few meat pies, and juice in disposable cups. It wasn't extravagant, but it was happy, and for Ngozi, that was rare. After the last child had left and Chimobi had fallen asleep in the corner, Ngozi began clearing the plastic plates with a tired smile on her face. "Leave that," Ikena said, taking the plates from her. "You cooked, you hosted, let me handle this part." They worked side by side under the dim porch light, occasionally bumping into each other, laughing at the mess the kids made. There was a warm, familiar rhythm between them now. The silence they once shared had turned into an ease, the kind that only comes from shared history and quiet understanding. When the last plate was packed, they stepped outside. The night was still, the moon full and soft, casting a silver glow over the compound. Ngozi folded her arms against the gentle breeze. "Thank you for today," she said. He looked at her, his eyes lingering longer than usual. It was a good day. Chimobi was happy. Yes, she smiled. He was. There was a pause. Then he said her name, Ngozi. It was slow, deliberate. She turned to face him. "I don't know how to say this. I might sound mad. Or stupid. But I can't pretend anymore." Her heart began to race. "I've watched you struggle. I've watched you raise Chimobi with grace. I've watched you hold your head high when others tried to shame you. I've seen your strength. Your kindness. Your heart. And somewhere along the line, I fell in love with you." Her lips parted in shock, but no words came out. Ikena took a deep breath. "I know I'm his brother. I know this situation is complicated, even scandalous to some. But I also know that I love you. And I love Chimobi like he's mine." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, the kind that held promises. He dropped to one knee. "Ngozi. I want to be your husband. Not out of pity. Not out of obligation. But out of love. I want to build a life with you and Chimobi, if you'll let me." She stared at him, her entire world tilting on its axis. This was the same compound where her dreams had died. The same family that once turned their backs on her. And yet, here was Ikena, in the midst of that wreckage, offering her something new. Something whole. Her mind screamed with questions. What would people say? Was this even allowed? What if Obinna returned? Was she betraying herself by saying yes? But when she looked into Ikena's eyes, steady, sincere, overflowing with love, she didn't see scandal. She saw safety. She saw healing. She saw home. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "More sure than I've ever been." A single tear slipped down her cheek. Then she nodded. And in that quiet night, beneath the judgment of a silver moon and the ghosts of yesterday's heartbreak, Ngozi let herself believe in love again.